Okay, we're all good.
Excellent. Thanks, John, with Cassandra's hair. Actually, it's kind of interesting. I can see Cassandra on one side in her photo and Cassandra head on in live. Yeah, I'm sort of bookended by Cassandra's tonight.
That's a glorious thing, Mark.
Welcome everybody to Lit Balm. I believe we're now talking 172. And we have a fantastic feature today with Jose Padua, Erica Miriam Fabri, Buck Downs, and Donald Wellman. And thank you for coming to this fantastic event. But before we get started, I think I'm going to introduce one of my co-hosts, Jeffrey Cyphers Wright, who received his MFA after studying with Allen Ginsberg. He's best known as a new romantic poet. He's also a publisher, critic, eco-activist, impresario, filmmaker, puppeteer, and artist. He's the author of 19 books of verse, including Blue Lyre and Party Everywhere. His poems have appeared in the Cafe Review, New American Writing, the Brooklyn Rail, the Hurricane Review, Posit, and many others. His most recent work also appears in Best American Poetry, New York Insiders, and Contemporary Surrealist and Magical Realist Poetry. Jeff's latest work, a book of sonnets and artwork called Doppelgangster, is out from Mad Hat Press. And Jeff recently won the Sir Vision James Tate Prize. I believe his new book is just out. And he also publishes Live Mag.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much, man. And happy Memorial Day again. And
hello, I'm here. Rico asked me to come.
well, Rufus, what are you doing here?
You told me to come to introduce the Badassery School of Poetry.
No, that was like a month ago.
What? What?
Oh, well, while you're here, Rufus, could you tell us what have you been doing lately?
Well, I have been working to win the Mark Vincent's Most Writing of the World Award. And so far, so good. And maybe I should come back another time.
Okay, Rufus, thank you.
All right. I'm sorry I got the date wrong about the Badassery School.
Okay, bye, Rufus. Now, this is the Psalms of the Irreverent. It's a little like the Badassery School, huh? Yeah, we've got a great lineup today, and it's fun to be here at the 109 millionth Lit Balm. What stamina. So I have a little sonnet today called Hard to Say. May dangles its besotted blossoms before us, camellia, narcissus, red clover for my lover. Living on borrowed zero, you knock me out. Two carousels passing in night's starry town, Saturn's ringtones tingling in my ribcage. Sunday drizzles on Forsyth Street, but who are we kidding? No one will even try to stop the pregnant robots, even if we have a go from the hidden tower. Slow dive into upward, here for now. As Darwin said, the beagle has landed. Getting to know you, honey flame. Our steps so hot, we leave burning embers until beyond vanishing, we amplify the sun. So, and now gives me great pleasure to introduce the stunning and spectacular Cassandra Atherton, the award-winning prose poet and international expert on prose poetry. Her prose poetry is widely anthologized and has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Cassandra has published more than 30 books and is currently writing an illustrated book of prose poetry on the Hiroshima Maidens with funding from the Australia Council and the Victorian government. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry an introduction, and co-edited the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She's commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. So glad to have her with us, Cassandra Atherton.
Thank you. I love your pregnant robots. I'm not sure how I could compete with that, but I'm writing a book for Princeton on ekphrastic poetry. So I'm doing all things ekphrastic, including prose poetry at the moment. And I'll plug an anthology that's just come out from Lorette and Claire that many of you know. And I'm going to read an ekphrastic prose poem based on Rossetti. Everyone knows my obsession with the Pre-Raphaelites. Rossetti's piece, Venus Verticordia. So here I go. Standing at the end of the bed, I'm firebrand angry, flame-driven. In summer's fever of heat, you've pressed me between pages. My paper wings are pinned. For 20 minutes, our words are scarlet-fletched arrows in flight until, in a hot silence, we make love. My hair floats like Titian's brushstrokes, escaping a gold hairband, and you smooth the curls from my breasts. We are flesh and striving breath, searching for an end point. Okay, so I'm excited to read Mark's bio. I hope I'm not rusty because it's one of my favorite things to do. Mark Vincennes is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published over 40 books of poetry, translations, and fiction, including more recently, The Pearl Diver of Irun Mani with White Pine Press, The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars with Lavender Ink, The Mayfly Codex with Spite and Dival, 3 Telltale Love Signs with Subpress Collective, Thieves' Canto with Nix's Mate, and just recently, The Visitation, a novelette from Servision. Forthcoming poetry, if that's not enough, collections include Spells for the Wicked with Unlikely Books and No More Animal Poems from White Pine Press. Mark is also a prolific translator and has translated from, the regulars know, German, Romanian, and French. He's published 11 books of translations, most recently An Audible Blue, Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz. And we know it won the 2023 Massachusetts Book Prize for Translated Literature. His own work has been translated into many languages, including Japanese, Chinese, Russian, French, Italian, Spanish, Romanian, Greek, German, and Icelandic. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of the Stella Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. So here we go, people, join in. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are still more, are you ready? Upland pill snails, maize pine cones, and northern red-bellied cooters than bipedal hominids. Mark, it's so good to read that again. What have you got for us today?
Thank you, Cassandra. I have something called, well, this is out of my new book that I'm working on called Ironclad, which is kind of a view of an imagined civilization through the eyes of an archaeologist in layers. And so it's a kind of intertwining of different mythologies from several eras within the civilization that is being uncovered in the dirt. And this poem is called, and is part of the mythology, And Then Descended the Wolves. And one night they whooped and howled as they fell upon us from the rubberized hills, forlorn, but by extending their flexible front paws, endeared themselves to both the townsfolk and the high citizenry. And by leaping through flaming wheels made of dried corn husks and wild flowers, and by gleefully dancing across waist-high meadows and catching butterflies in their teeth, and through the cobbled lanes of the city bearing life, and by offering tokens of dead and dying mammals of seaweed or crimson pebbles of sea glass, and the mind-bending multi-dimensional fungi we later named the One. They were beloved and adored, and as they nestled in their places by our hearths, from our crumbling plaster walls, the iron pliers of the holy smithies clamped down and embraced us all. Thank you so much. And now I am delighted to hand over the mic to my co-host, Jeffrey Cyphers-Wright, who will be introducing the first three poets in this anthology of Lit Balm.
Okay, what great lead-off poems we've heard so far. Just sweet stuff, right? Well, I'm really happy to introduce Jose Padua, whose first book, A Short History of Monsters, was chosen by Billy Collins as the winner of the 2019 Miller-Williams Poetry Prize. And, you know, if you don't know Miller-Williams or you don't know his daughter, Lucinda Williams, you should get thee to a truck store and get a truck and drive out there and come to. No, anyway, I'm sorry, get distracted. But I mean, I love, that's so wonderful, the Miller-Williams Poetry Prize. And it's out from the University of Arkansas Press. His poetry, fiction, and nonfiction have appeared in many publications, including Live Magazine. Please welcome Jose Padua.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey.
You can hear me all right. I'm going to read some from my more recent series of sonnets that it's a series of 60 or so sonnets, and there are different voices, characters in these, and there are a lot of references, and it's, well, I'll just go ahead and start and see how it goes. This first one is called A Highly Speculative Concatenation of Walt Whitman with the Birth of Punk Rock, among other things. Walt Whitman wrote, I sing the body electric, but I wonder if he ever imagined the power and possibilities of the electric guitar. Could he have been the one who invented it, if only in his mind, without telling anyone, either friend or lover or man or woman, connected by soil, blood, or other bodily fluid? Did his inner ear hear the shredding, the solos, like an Indian raga, the power chords, and strum the rhythm, or maybe even the cry-baby effects of the wah-wah pedal? Just as we see our souls reflected in nature, we hear them too, in the falling of rocks, the bending of trees in the storm, and the ocean's steady breathing and humming that becomes the measure of an old stolen blues song. And in the time of short nights and long days, was it Walt Whitman who, in the midst of a midnight's body song, first lifted a bottle of glue to his nose and breathed in? This next one is called, For Modern Lovers, Everyone and Everywhere and Anyhow. Some people go to poetry readings to pick up girls and get called assholes. This never happened to Vladimir Mayakovsky. He could walk into the stray dog and the girls could not resist the formal experimentation of his verse. No, Vladimir Mayakovsky was never called an asshole, not like me. While the women would turn the color of an unripe tomato when they read the work he selected for the levee from Irkutsk. He could scatter dirty words on the page like a poser or a psycho, but Vladimir Mayakovsky was never called an asshole. No, he wasn't. Well, the world moves on like a nightclub after midnight, and its lights flash through the universe for several million years. And I think there's a corner store where I can buy some Slim Jims plus a six-pack of cheap domestic beer. I'll sit down on a park bench and suffer so brilliantly until the words just throw up out of me. This one is called Travis Bickle's Love Sonnet for the End of Time. Travis Bickle being Robert De Niro's character in Taxi Driver. Sometimes I feel like the father of all time machines, bending years into each other like colors, blue and yellow combining to create an hour the color of trees. I spread the story about the rampant thievery of souls when I was a believer in other lifetimes. We were thieves ourselves, stealing water back from the wicked, air from a man named after the tower we took shelter in. It was an era of cruelty and swiftness, a way of traveling where fuel was cheap and rent the sound you made while rubbing two sticks together. The first time we made fire, it was to feed our children. The second was to exact revenge upon our enemies, who were many and beautiful as a heart pumping madness away from a lover's weary mind at a hospital in Midtown. Oh, I'll read this one too. This is called A Sonnet for Big-Time Professional Poetry and Gratitude to my old friend Stephen Cicerelli. I want to see Victoria Chang in a cage match with Fatima Asghar. Anything goes, because yes, sometimes I just like to see poets fuck shit up. I want to see Billy Collins in a cage match with David Kirby. Anything goes, because I think they're friends. And when friends fight, you get a big audience, and I want to be the vendor handling concessions. I want to see Stephen Dobbins in a cage match with Bob Hickok. Anything goes, because they will look at each other sneeringly and suspiciously for half an hour, and that alone will make it a classic match. I want to see Natasha Trethewey in a cage match with Natalie Diaz. Anything goes, because Jesus, wouldn't you? And besides, the world is too big for this not to happen. I want to see Layli Long Soldier in a cage match with Nick Flynn, even though everyone knows she'll make Nick Flynn cry for help from his mama. I want to see Jeff McDaniel in a cage match with everyone in the current edition of the Paris Review. Anything goes, because Jeff will say, "What the fuck?" before destroying all his opponents with an incredible metaphor for discomfort. I want to see Terrence Hayes in a cage match with Robert Pinsky. Anything goes, so I can stand tall as a potentate and play drums like Patrick Rosal, but with my teeth. I guess just a couple more now. This is called an autobiography for a man of belligerent means. This is after one time the singer of Bikini Kill, denounced me here, and when I was in DC during a show, and I deserved it. I was pretty horrible back then. I think of all the people who said cross words about me. Kathleen Hanna of the band Bikini Kill, who denounced me from on stage at the old Black Cat Club. All the fine poets who thought I was just another drunk saying drunk ass shit. All the writers of letters to the editor who recommended that I shut my damn mouth, crawl back into the sewer I crawled out of, stop polluting the discussion with my pseudo-intellectual skank. The name of my article was A Night in Heaven. The name of my poem was The Complete Failure of Everything. The name of my book was A Short History of Monsters. The name of my monster was me. I used to be an asshole. Now I'm worse. I used to be a fake human. Now I'm just fake. Tell me how my footsteps echo so sharply against the nighttime sky before I stop to tie my shoes, as graceful as a dancer, by the pale green lamplight of a small town street so free of ostentation. And just one more. This is the last one. Why I am not a chieftain. A peculiar fact. If you lend me a book, you will never get it back. My neighbor Kevin in Alexandria, Virginia, lent me Bob Dylan's Chronicles, Volume 1. I still have it. Conrad, my friend Casey's boyfriend when she lived in New York, lent me the two books Oscar Acosta wrote. I still have them. My friend, the writer Liz Hand, lent me Gene Wolfe's The Shadow of the Torturer, and I never returned it, and I never read it. What the fuck is with me? Why do people trust me with their favorite books? Pangil was the legendary chieftain of the land that became Laguna, the Philippine province from whence my mother came. When you came into my mother's house, She offered you delicious food to eat. When you come into my house, I say hello, then sit and stare at the wall. I am not a chieftain. I am a poet. I am the only one in my house who eats sardines. Thank you.
Oh, Jose, that was amazing, huh? The gold
Thanks.
sardine can, right? Now we're freed from ostentation. Thank you. Thank you, Jose, so much.
I think you muted yourself, Jeff.
Oh, crap. Did you hear anything I said, Cassandra?
Yeah, the bit about Jose, and then you muted yourself before you
Okay.
started
How do I do that?
talking.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, all right. So Erica Miriam Fabri, her book is called Dialect of a Skirt, was a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize, and she's been widely published in magazine anthologies and has worked as a writer and educator for Urban Word New York City and for Nickelodeon Television. She teaches performance poetry and fiction writing at Pace University, and she has poems forthcoming in Live Mag. Please welcome Erica Miriam Fabri.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay, beautiful. I am actually going to read some poems I have from my newest manuscript. So I think I've never read these poems out loud. That's a lie. I've read one out loud. But they're all relatively new, which still means some of them might be 5 years old. Okay, the first poem, the title is The Greatest Poem Ever Written. The greatest poem ever written must be a love poem. There must be a tongue in this poem with its own animal heart and 2 lips that suck skin like warm dumplings. But the greatest poem ever written also must be a war poem, where people eat grenades instead of sandwiches, where children remember their homes only as lightning bolts. If I build this poem on a mountain overlooking a dragon-shaped lake, I cannot be afraid of falling from the roof of the poem to my doom. Instead, I must learn the recipe for making a neon rainbow that floats like a fog between old trees. There will be ghosts. After all, it is the greatest poem ever written, which means people love people who die and haunt their dark windows. The dead return as green light energy. They sneak into our bodies at the feet, then ripple through our legs like an ocean wave. We have sex and we pretend it is not the ghost in us compassing our hips. Because this is the greatest poem ever written, it needs to be true. We are already residents of the insane asylum. A straitjacket is the only quilt we own. What are eyeballs? What are eyeballs? Are you an eyeball? You are late to work. You live in New York City. Your bag is too heavy. You are certain today will be the day your collarbone snaps like a carrot from the ferocious weight. You are holding a paper cup of tea. When you try to squeeze honey into the rising steam, you miss. The sticky golden goo oozes over the lines of your palm. You can lick it off, or you can throw yourself into traffic. I daydream of taking a long, hot shower while the whole world burns. I stand alone in the bathtub. Outside, tornadoes of fire roar. Flames are arms. Come and get me. Holy hands, take me. Okay, this next poem, the title is High Definition Microphone Life. If you ever have the chance to sing or speak or even just breathe into a high definition microphone, you'll find out what I found out, that even the things in life we thought were soundless, in fact, have a voice. When the forefinger and the thumb brush against one another, or the tongue gently stirs in the mouth, when a lock of hair falls from your ear to your chin, these things that you thought were as quiet and soft as cheese actually make clicks and shh and whooshes that we never listen to. How reckless I've been for the almost 9,000 hours of every year I've been alive to go about my day, ignoring all these luscious noises, especially when I know that at any moment an earthquake could come and shake or swallow my whole beautiful life. Then I think about the people I love, how all this time I thought I was paying attention to them just because I answer when they speak to me, or because I turn to check on them when they sneeze or stub their toe. But really, now I see how I have wasted my time on this planet because I never really knew the sound of their upper lip laying itself onto their lower lip. I never memorized the rub of their neck against their t-shirt. Maybe their eyelashes are making a music I can hum to myself as a way to remember them when they leave me. Perhaps there's a whisper when they uncross their legs, or a low rumble when they swallow that would break me apart in 10 places, move me enough to write a poem about their rattle. And now that I know this, will the anxiety of wanting to catch up on all that I've missed madden me, make me lose sleep? Maybe that would be best, because then I could lay awake and spend the night listening to the blessings in the walls, the blessings in the blankets. Maybe I will be able to hear my own body resounding, my ribs tossing and turning, organs I don't even know I have barking or trumpeting. Maybe I will hear a roach sliding its skinny leg along its lover's backside, and then I will know the sound of a kind of lovemaking I never even realized was happening each night, only inches away from my reverberating breath. Thank you. I live in New York City, so I write a lot about cockroaches and rats, just by default. Okay, this next poem is called 6. I don't know if my grandfather remembers killing his brother. It happened 100 years ago with a pointy-nosed gun. The bullet slid through the weapon's hummingbird body, warm in his tiny palms, and into the clay-like muscle of the newborn 6th child. That was the baby's name, 6. After baby number 6 was pronounced dead, their mother grew another boy in her hollow place, just underneath her still tender, ticking clock. They gave the new baby the same name, 6. Did they think they could trick the gods into believing that the second 6 was the same as the first? Returned home from a long stay with the seamstress of skin, a good witch who knows how to unbullet a baby? By the time I meet him, my grandfather seems immortal. His breath is a windstorm, even though his 2 spongy balloons have turned iron black. He wears rifles on his shoulders as if they are thunderbolts. Fish in the water bend their backs and surrender to him. When my son is born, he and my grandfather are a century apart. On his 100th birthday, he holds my baby. Their coal eyes match. There is an entire time machine between them. Diamonds are buried in those antique hands, squeezed between the deepest layers of dark carbon. Diamonds are indestructible. I want to mine them from his palms. Let them leak out. Let us drink them. This is my son. He is new here. Okay, I brought one more, but I'm not sure on time. Should I do one more, or that could be my finale? One more. Okay. This poem is called There Are No Tattoos in Heaven. Last night, you came to visit me in a dream. You told me there are no tattoos in heaven and held out your arms, wiped clean, as proof. You asked if I wanted to know more about what it's like to live in the sky. I could tell you were tired by the way your body hung itself on the chair next to me. The clouds must have peeled 20 years off your skin. You wore dark brown hair like a teenager. You came back as the version of you I loved first, the version I loved most. There was too much to catch up on, and I didn't know how much time we had. I told you I was having a hard time making poems without you here, that even though I'd been so angry with you for so many years, I didn't want you to die. I told you my son is a masterpiece, that every day ignites and detonates a cannonball thing inside me. I told you that I do not go one day without remembering you and wondering how you always knew since we were kids that you would die so young. Why did we never believe you? You told me again that there are no tattoos in heaven, so save your money. They are just a temporary stain. Or on second thought, you said, no, go ahead. Get as many tattoos as you can afford. Their full color life is fleeting. They decorate the flesh for such a short time. Savor every needled line. I begged you to stay longer, but that was an impossible request. No one gets to tell their dreams what to do. I asked if you still remembered the screen door, the coconut, the handfuls of pennies, the lake. You didn't. It was then that I realized the dead don't recognize us. They leave us behind, and we spend the rest of our days twisting our limbs, making ourselves turn colors in our attempts to bring them back to life. That's all.
Oh, Erica, how fabulous, Miss Fabri.
Thank
You
you.
really brought us back to life, huh? There will be ghosts, though. All right. So fine, so fine. Erica, where are you, by the way?
I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, how good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Ben. All right. Thank you, Erica.
Thank
And
you.
now, all right. And now let's get Buck Downs. Let me say a little bit about Buck, legendary Buck Downs. He's keeping the underground alive in the New York Times lately. He his MO is sending postcards, stickers, voicemails, and other ephemera across the country and around the world. Buck Downs creates a body of work as boundless and intimate as life and death. You can find his latest book, Nice Nose, at buckdowns.com or anywhere fine books are sold. And I just saw a great review of Buck's. It was in Rain Taxi, wasn't it, Buck?
Right, that's right, my man. Simon really came through on that one.
All right, Buck, we can hear you loud and clear. Take it away.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so yeah, nice nose. Oh, computer screen glare. All right, that's the product. And yeah, you can find that at buckdowns.com, bookshop.org. All of your independent booksellers can get it for you. A higher calling than making a living, that's my job. Sweet, invisible means of support. Love won't shut up. No, you shut up. My favorite place to smoke is in my own house, and I secretly adore that it smells like a sweaty ashtray, even after I've been gone for 2 weeks. This one's called Son of a Bitch. What can you say when someone hateful loves you? A fidget button for pushing some unlabeled trapdoor I always fall for. My desire to push the button. I have no idea. And what does this do? This is called Screaming Dog in the Background. And when people ask, why does your dog scream like that? I say, she's very advanced. An ice cream cone that could lick itself would find it has lost its reason for being. And 2 television poems, right quick. Television poem in 2 voices. Scooby-Doo doesn't even know he's dead. That's not true. Scooby-Doo is back and looking better than ever. The name of your life. When I woke up, there was a television in my mouth. it was showing the name of my life, the secret name. Everyone watched what I could not see. They heard what I did not know. This is called Splitting in Nacho Fries with You. You and some savior you don't believe in walk into a bar. If 30 days of nacho fries aren't enough to bring you to the dark side, then you must be an angel of light. Never leave my sight and get me a Coke while you're there. Poem for dinosaurs. There was a dinosaur civil war, and it got pretty out of hand. One day, the dinosaurs decided to get back in their flying saucers and fly on back home. This earth that was our paradise, the dinosaurs ravished it and split. And we have been feasting on the ruin they left behind. A lot of this recent stuff has been really affected by my actively writing poems for Instagram and finding, to my delight and surprise, that like at least in that space, we're talking about two kind of adjacent art forms, you know, poetry and comedy, and they have different ends, but they do a lot of the same things. And so, which is not to say that poetry is a joke, but here it comes. The folly of experience. Caught my pig bird in a quail trap out where the night owl makes the young bird happy. Finger fat pink pig caught flying in the thistle wicket. It's a bit more juicy than I would want to try, but I had to take the bite and find out. A photo I saw but do not have. The tale of somebody who didn't exist based on the life of someone who did. He sold the farm, he bought the farm. Either way, it didn't turn out well. America had buried their president. That was what they called it anyway. Not the sort of thing you get to write about if you write jokes for a living. Pulp medicine. Hey, don't ask me what's in it. Just get some down and directions will kick in on the back end. If you ask me, how does this work? I say fine. Works just fine. This is called Snowdrops. All you princes and princesses of my euphoria. Oh, you are nighttime's darling. Your potty mouth makes me out. Now come over here and tell me about your day. The system doesn't know you. Hearts slammed to the pavement, isolated incidents that happen every day. Little rag and bonehead. It doesn't take an earthquake to rock my little world. It doesn't take a rattlesnake to sting me. Hearing voices, seeing sights, psychic living and experience of the mouth. Everything is a judgment call. What we do is clear away the fuzz to see. Shrinking payoff in the total range of sounds. You're allowed to want it, even if you don't want to have it. Informed torment. An old man being led around by the nose, by his followers, the mocking echo of a secret you used to know and now struggle to remember who you told it to. He said, you know, you're old when light is useless against the dark. Night hydro. Dang, Jim Beam incognito, as if sight were the only sense, and even a blind man could tell that we were getting stank up, y'all. Shall the rose bush grow where the cherry once stood, and the roses all covered with dung and bees, when the nicotines no longer lay waste to us all? Let's just rough it out. Let's just wade right into the war on broken hearts, days when you whisper, nights when you cry. Sounds like some horseman. All the burnt parts still rule inside. This one's called Kettle Rips. A sense of mal-aimé on the part of everything that is the case, but it will not do to jump the groove and ignore it. Every time I drop in for a quick one, I end up staying all night. Don't turn me out, baby, when all I want is you. It's what you do. I do it too. It's how I knew. Yeah, this is that New York Times poem, thanks to Ann Boyer. And kind of cool being in the Taylor Swift issue of the New York Times Magazine. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with being a poet in the age of Taylor Swift. It's pretty cool. Fluid Cupid. A good time and a bad time had a baby, and it remained unnamed a very long time. A poet in the ballpark, a painter at the races, a preacher of Saturday nights, and a big-time gambler in bed. Most parents truly do not have a clue all the lines that must be crossed to get where baby needs to go. This is the night crawler. The swerve becomes a grind, and the groove finds itself in a rut. Well, that's history for you, worming its way through in the dark, one mouthful at a time. The thing about your garbage is it's not yours. You made a deal. You put it out, they take it away, and you let them. I'm gonna keep it short here because I want to end strong, and I'm eager to hear Don. This is Shy Boy. I served as my own source text, cutting and pasting into and out of my body like I was a human document, indifferent to how I felt or what I might have meant, delighted in my self-erasure. My sweet, mutilated baby, my mirror, myself. I rule. I fucking rule. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. It's been great.
All right, Buck.
But you rule, you're a badass. I'm glad I stuck around for that. You're a part of the badassery school yourself there.
That's right, Rufus. He is, huh?
Yeah, speaking of badassery, we loved all that. Amazing. Yes, I think I was right about it for the Times. And now, speaking of badassery, let's hear Mark Vincennes. Welcome, Don. Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
thank you.
Thank you, Rufus. Thank you, Rufus. Rufus, can you do me a quick haiku?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, sure.
I went to the handicapped zone parking place, and there I found a lollipop that had fallen from a child's purse, and I stole it and licked it all in under the full moon.
Oh, thank you, Rufus. Thank you, Mark, for asking, right?
All right. Donald Wellman is a poet who lives in Ware, New Hampshire. He's recently been seen skulking through the outlying districts of Spain and Morocco. Donald has 9 books of poetry. He translates from several languages, German, French, as well as Spanish. Originally a medievalist, his academic expertise now lies in 20th century and contemporary poetry and poetics. His research and scholarship have concentrated on the works of Ezra Pound, William Carlos Williams, Charles Olson, and figures associated with the Black Mountain College. He writes on transnational literature, including the literature and culture of the Caribbean. At Daniel Webster College, where he was a professor of humanities, he taught creative writing, history of modern art, world literature, Caribbean literature, and a seminar on censorship and self-expression. Donald's poetics derives from Charles Olson's practice of open field composition and explores the phenomenology of perception. Wellman's Eibach, Celan, Reading Across Languages from 2017, engages translation as an act of reading that helps to reinvent the relation between the home language and the language being translated, and editing the journal Oars, O.ARS, from 1981 to 1993. Among the Neighbors, the poetry collection of the University Libraries, University at Buffalo, was released 2018. And Wellman's Expressivity in Modern Poetry was released by Fairleigh Dickinson Press in 2018. Welcome, Donald.
I think I'm unmuted. Thank you very much for the introduction.
You are, you are.
Auf einer jüngst gestorbene Nachtigall, sie hat kein Lied mehr gehabt, es war schon versummt, aber in tiefer Traurigkeit. Those are two lines from a longer poem by Frederica Miriam, who is my current occupation. And I'd like to read that translation before I go to my current book. I don't know why something about Africa Day just popped up. On a dead nightingale young, she sings no more. She was already silenced in the deepest sadness. Her eyes, snow eyes, have looked on me. Somewhere she lies now with the holy shimmering, just like her last note. I don't know how to approach the bedroom where the remembered glance at the blue nightingale beyond the water makes me cry. This torn, I mean, half world in the window, in whose light she surrenders. Then the undertaker wraps her in a shroud in which, as when she swayed in her hammock in Dartmouth under the trees, as if she could still sing, as if she could still laugh, as if she could still run over the windswept hills to heaven through the fleeting barley fields. Now that's Frederica. She sort of jams all kinds of things together very subtly. I'm going to read from my developing manuscript called Ecologues. It's only called Ecologues because it's about nature in some way, and the places and references shift as they did in the last poem. So it's an endless series poem. In fact, the more I read this out loud, the longer the poem gets. It's now about 60 pages long. On the night of the burgundy moon, planet Earth masking the sun, I examined the remains of a bull pine that had collapsed upon itself. Its trunk lay in thick and heavy slabs, forming a barricade in the far corner of the yard. Meteorites had caught in the branches of surrounding trees. Tired limbs rocked and threatened to collapse. Fragments of trunk, dead to the core, rotted meat wrapped in gray skin. This desolate scene in an angle of the world demarcated by stone walls, Nathaniel Hawthorne's gloom, second growth woods deemed worthless by foresters. The bullpine, before it fell, had participated in the lives of Aborigines, Native Americans, and settlers. All around had once been burnt to the ground to produce pasture for cattle or swine. No longer a farming or dairy economy, instead a semi-rural suburb adjacent to electric plants, diesel motors powered by fuel from Texas or Ohio. A difficult life for young families and their kids who explore the river and pretend that they are wolves or wolf cubs. In the raw moonlight, a woodchuck appeared, so large it seemed to be a bear. The children of Ursa Major feed on the Milky Way. Along the stream bed, wildlife persists. When I suffer, the angels rejoice, for then they have access to my feelings, which are otherwise unavailable to them. The toll reduces me so that I wish for a pious life, true loneliness, wahre Abgeschiedenheit. The vertical cladding of the barn, sun-streaked passages among creosote boards. Why do I return so often to this theme? Does it represent the coruscations of my brain? Glimmers ping across intracranial spaces. The worn wood is an index of hallucinations. The glandular seepage stains my hands. There was a brown girl with whom I crawled over the sand under the old barracks that served as temporary housing for military families on Fort Knox. I believe that she became a recording star, perfume voice, and innocent heat. We were not able to speak after summer intimacies. We didn't ride the same school bus to the elementary school next to the bakery, whose yeasty smells remind me of her body. Bread of unbleached flour, substantive like creosote-soaked boards. A window frame without a window mounted on the wall, the yellow rim of a clock with a rusted faceplate, the red needle frozen in another time at 4 a.m. My dad woke me to shovel coal and stoke the embers, the dust acrid, a communal responsibility shared by the residents of the barracks. The sunrise gray and ghostly to my sleepy eyes. I had the mumps, my gonads swollen in a time of sexual awakening. I could not distinguish fever from arousal and stayed woefully in bed all day. To heal gaps where lathes have fallen away from the barn wall or holes where woodpeckers have fed, take cedar shakes that will weather and match other elements in the palette. Reaching out from the forest, a hemlock branch bounces in the wind. Cars speed by. A yellow sleeve protects a guy wire stretched to the top of a telephone pole. Runoff trickles in the drainage ditch and courses downhill to the river where mills once stood and felting machines. It is said that the first shoe factory in this country stood on the shores of the Pescataquag. The buildings lost now since the Great Flood. The railroad company had already torn up the tracks, though it still owns the right-of-way, now a data superhighway. This is a lesson in persistent capitalism and neglect with reference to the eroded land. Nothing remains, not even the canals that powered the machinery, now rusting into the earth. Everywhere in these woods are metal debris and sodden mattresses where indigent folk sleep. As gathered on a hillside, some count the meteors, Perseids or Leonids. Some remember the spaceship Hale-Bopp that tracked Halley's Comet and the invitation to transport. On one ridge, there was a view across open fields, ancient cattle lowed. I held my daughter's hand and bid her farewell before she returned to her college and studies of Penobscot basket weaving, where the sweet grass basket sat on the sand, a star formed, granules sifted through the heavenly sky. Bodies of poets swim through sunset clouds, swirling tones of roseate, yellow, mauve, illuminate the world in all of its dimensions, swaths and whirlpools of transcendent light. Golden trout rise on their tails to meet the ravage of osprey throats. Nestlings feed on the pink fruit of freshly caught salmon. Lips speak necessary truths to gods and angels. Emotions of this order require suffering. Supernatural forces thus become sentient, and angels learn their place in a cold and insolent universe. Horizon, furnace, fire, red. That was the first 9 pages. Now I'm going to skip way ahead. I have a weird problem that if I can have time to read 2 more poems. I have titmice on my porch. They're nesting on top of the light fixture, and this is a recurring poem. The poem in which I read is also one of my poems dedicated to the life and poetry of Friedrich Hölderlin. The felt lining soaked and torn, blisters. Have you walked in the snow from Bordeaux to Nürtingen? The swallows have returned and nest on the porch light. 3 years ago, I swept them away. Now moss and grass clippings are wet with their urine. I'll let them be while I look for work. How long will they persist, feeding their young and squawking when I draw near? I had hoped to sit out in the sun and study love letters and poetry. Schiller from Marbach disappoints me with his mockery. Now I am confined to the tower room that rises above the Neckar so as not to embarrass my mother. As a boy of 17, I walked along the towpath, composing verses for the girl whose father was base commander. He sent her to the nuns in Switzerland to keep us apart, or so I thought. Her image floats before me as the stream plunges from distant Alps. I mount a rusted bicycle that leans against a railing in Singapore. It squeaks like those damn birds, must upon and in confirmation. Now I'm going to skip even further ahead in time. Trenches were laden with corpses dressed in white sailcloth, kafan for voyaging, 3 shrouds for men, 5 for women. Relatives of the same sex washed the bodies, laid upon stones to prevent contamination, covered in stones for the ghusl. The orientation is Mecca. Mourners may gather even as warplanes hurl missiles. White walls crumble. Melville wrote in awe of the white wall, white whale. From the onlooker's perspective, the road does not end. There are few bends. Fathers wail, holding their young. Mothers seek comfort from mothers and daughters. A brother chokes on his breakfast, sugar-glazed cider donuts from New England. And here's a final poem. The season of passing lifts its sunny locks. Another immortal has left us. Footprints do not veil the sky, but blaze luminescent streaks. Smile and bright eyes attract those who would be called lovers, lovers of poetry, lovers of sacred peyote, of personages who haunt my mind. For Jerome Rothenberg.
Pascatawag. Oh,
Thank you, Donald.
Catawag. The first shoe factories, they say. But in 38, there was a flood and all the factories went away.
Thank you so much, Donald. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
And thank you, of course, Jose, Erica Miriam, Downs, for this fantastic reading tonight. And we're going to listen to a new piece from one of our regulars and our technical manager, John Wessick, who's also the regional editor of the San Diego Poetry Annual. He's published hundreds of poems and stories in journals such as Atlanta Review, Berkeley Fiction Review, I-70 Review, and many others. And his most recent books are The Shaman in the Library and The Prague Deception. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mark. By the way, Donald, I remember Jerome Rothenberg. I used to hear him all the time in San Diego, great poet. Private Detective Morris Pillbottle is back in Boink for Biodiversity. Thank you for coming, Mr. Pillbottle. Elizabeth Huffington was thin as a pocky stick and had hair wispy as cotton candy. They say inbreeding caused the Habsburg chin. If that was the case, her forebears must have engaged in a lot of it because Elizabeth Huffington had two of them. Care for a sherry? Sure. She motioned to the butler who brought two glasses. The sherry was sweet and cloying as Ms. Huffington's perfume. A sex cult took my niece and I want her back. Ms. Huffington sipped her ghastly sherry. It's called Boink for Biodiversity. They make porn and donate the proceeds to save the planet or some such nonsense. Shouldn't she make her own choices? I looked for some place to ditch my drink, but setting it on the eucalyptus wood desk would leave a ring, so I downed it in one gulp just to get rid of it. Oh, want another? Elizabeth Huffington snapped her fingers for the butler to bring me a refill. Amanda's been in and out of sanitariums for years. Despite the best medical care, she still suffers from delusions. In 3 months, she'll be 25. Then the trust fund will revert to her and we won't be able to help her. How does $1,000 a day sound? Better than 10% off at Denny's. I set down the sherry glass by the foot of my wingback chair. That depends, of course, on how much you order at Denny's. Here are your plane tickets to Wyoming. She handed me an envelope. Our local contact will meet you at the airport. I spotted a Great Pyrenees mountain dog holding a placard with my name on it in the arrival hall at the Jackson Airport. His coat was white and he had floppy ears and a long, broad muzzle. From his warm brown eyes, I could tell he was gentle with children and devoted to his family, but due to his size and strength, would need lots of training and socialization. You Morris Pillbottle, he asked. I nodded. What's your name, big fella? Grantham Snooterbox. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? I scratched him behind the ears. Are you related to the Snooterboxes of Penobscot, Maine? No, those are New England Snooterboxes. I hail from the Rocky Mountain Snooterboxes, he said, with pride bordering on arrogance, as if no canines who lived below 5,000 feet had the right to call themselves mountain dogs. Tail wagging, he led me to a white Jeep Cherokee in the parking lot and got behind the wheel. I tossed my bag in the back and climbed in beside him. This raised several questions like, how did his paws reach the gas pedal, and how did a dog get a driver's license in the first place? I wasn't here to enforce Wyoming's traffic laws, so I sat back and gazed at the mountains that rose from the horizon like scores of high-rises made of pre-Cambrian metamorphic rock. Snooterbox drove well for a dog, except for his habit of sticking his head out the window. And you can read the rest of that story on Horror Sleaze Trash. I posted a link in the chat.
Thank you. That
Thanks,
was
Mark.
amazing. I've missed that. Have you missed that, Mark?
Oh,
You've missed it.
totally. Especially sticking his head out the window a bit, you know.
Well, I love cotton candy, but we call it fairy floss in Australia. I kind of like fairy floss. I don't want fairy floss hair, John, but cotton candy is pretty cool. The next person I have on my list is Philip, who is a brilliant poet and now also makes libraries, which I'm very excited. Philip, I can't wait to. I've not heard you read for ages and ages, so I'm really thrilled.
Well, thanks for asking. So this is called Recent History. There was a time when dogs wandered free, when a man like Bill DeFriest might spread in the corner of his barbershop a mat where a passing hound could stop for a nap before returning home for dry kibble and dinner scraps. When a policeman might stop in front of the house, open the back door of his car and let a beagle step like a guest down to his home grass after spending 2 nights stuck in a drainage pipe. When roaming was natural, when growing up was worth the risk.
Oh, and it was gorgeous and so worth the wait. So moving, so poignant, quite a little bit of whimsy there too. Thank you so much for reading. It was really wonderful to hear you read. We have the amazing DeWitt next. DeWitt always has something banging for us with some puns and some wordplay. And I have a little like snapshot into what he's reading today, and it's one of my faves. So DeWitt.
Sound?
You got it.
Okay. This is a found poem from my own prose called On Falling. Leaves fall, blazing. Fortune's wheel, Zenus, nadirs, Decasibus, downfall, come down. Lucifer's fall, wings clipped, hurled headlong, flaming from the ethereal sky, sings Milton. Fall of man, original lapse. Down the rabbit hole, Alice. Horatio's vertigo on tower's edge. The very place puts toys of desperation without more motive into every brain. From imagination's heights, blind Gloucester, ratful. Hangman's fall, end of rope. The jumpers from Trade Center, tumbling from fire into void. Icaruses with melting wings. The runners tripped by root. Galileo's law, dropped together a feather and hammer, air resistance accepted, should hit the ground at once. The tandem skydive from 15,000 feet, neophyte and instructor are harnessed together for dear life. Goggles for wind, jumpsuits rippling. For 60 seconds, more like flying than falling. Before ripcords pull, then 5 minutes float to ground. On YouTube, headset cams record 2 daredevils in gliding suits. They leap one after the other from a mountain peak into updrafts and soar down over cliffs and ridges until far below a valley greatens. Leonardo's dream turns sport. Flight is careful falling. Bungee cords, elastic limit, rescues heave, then down, then up. Resilience fading. Falling in love. Fallen soldiers, civilizations. Dow falls, stocks lessen. The precious bowl escaped, turns in midair beyond reclaim. Our planet drifts spinning. Astronauts ricochet from padded walls. The runner picks himself up, walks stiffly, keeps jogging. The fallen king discovers wisdom, humility, compassion. Spring buds return. My wife revises. Down will come baby, cradle and all. To down will come baby into mommy's arms.
Love it. I do love the found poems that you've written. And who could resist Milton, Lewis Carroll, Icarus, Falling in Love? It's got everything in it. And now I think I'm going to have to make Bungie the nickname for you. You write about it so perfectly. So there we go. We have Dominique next, and she will read something beautiful in a gorgeous accent as well that I'm very envious of. Dominique.
Hello, Cassandra. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm going to read But That They Become Bonfires. It's a poem I wrote after Kay Miller. Here, where my experience is limited to an outsider's, can't be held by the small arms of language. Here where blossom the acacias, of which there are 1,080 varieties worldwide, the sugar glider sucks silver and 8 wattles dry. The finch feasts on spear grass, the butterfly caterpillar munches wattle mat rush. The dusky moorhen scoffs slender knotweeds, the eltham copper butterfly guzzles sweet berseria. Black silver banksias. The koala gets drunk on yellow box and managan. The spotted pardalot eats holes in the foliage of psyllids. Here the child traps pygmy possums and initials the bark of trees, picks the succulent fruit of pig faces, squeezes out the pulp, demolishes the sweet tubers of water ribbons and crisps the wings of water birds. Here the real predator is violence. Plastic artifacts, hologrammed waters and decimated trees adorn the creek. Consider the writhing bees, the carcasses of platypuses and wallabies and rabbits, the binding weed, dog turd, the wolves in sheep's clothing, bloated bodies and frayed bodices, slabs of concrete erasing all that was, silent cries. There's no limit to the anger I feel, knowing the most life-threatening risk I took was to go for a walk alone along the creek and to be a woman. Here is the place between them and us. Here where mouths and knuckles and knives hold back the light. Words work off their own fire. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. What a stirring eco poem. I love the sugar glider moment, and the pig faces and platypuses are pretty good too. So Dominique is in Melbourne like I am, so it's very early on Sunday morning. So a special shout out for getting up early. That was beautiful. Thank you. And we are going to have our famous duo finish up the open mic for us. So I've missed my Brooklyn badass sister, Cindy. What's going on in the living room?
I'm wearing my badass shirt.
Perfect.
Because
Awesome.
I had a feeling you were going to mention it. I'm going to read, Cassandra knows this poem well because she published it in her wonderful anthology play. And this short alliterative poem, I'm working on an alliterative series. And if you see any similarity between this poem and Gertrude Stein. I'll just tell you that Gertrude copied from me. Void and avoidance. Who is dancing on my vagus nerve? Me, very me, only me, very, very. Vague, viscous, vascular, vaxed. Volatile files of Valium. Ventriloquists, vocal verse in the vein of vernacular. Voila! Vigorous, vibrant vitality? No, vacant, veiled, and vexed. Vestige of myself. Thank you.
I do love that poem. And of course, V for Vincennes. I'm sure Mark will add to that list. So love that poem. Wouldn't have published it if I didn't. So I love it. And our final moment in the open mic is, of course, our kitchen laureate, Bob from his kitchen. He always has something wonderful. I know I say it a lot, but I do love to take away his little piece of information, or he might sing and dance, he may tap dance. We never know what he's going to do, but whatever he does, I take it with me for the rest of the day, and it's a beautiful moment. So Bob, over to you.
Thanks. This is a short one. Not information, except everything is information, of course. The idea of, or an outline. The words extra, or no longer a description of. The dimensions, those of a rhino or giraffe, or a man who has been inflated. The story starting in this way.
And that's how Bob does it, everyone. He just manages to do something a little bit magical with the end of the open. So Mark, over to V for Vincent.
Oh, well, guys, thank you so much for a fantastic showing. Jose, Erica Miriam, Buck Downs, and Donald. What a great show. And of course, this, as you know, we're heading toward our 4th year now at Lit Balm. So I hope you guys will continue supporting us and coming to our shows. Every now and then we do a fundraiser. I don't know if you guys were around, but in those years when we were heading from a Republican Party to a Democratic Party, we actually did a fundraiser for 2 weekends. And we raised $10,000 for the Democratic Party. So we've done some stuff. And we'd love to do more things like that.
Hallelujah.
So join us for those things. Hallelujah. Jeffrey Wright. Okay, so to end this wonderful reading, I'm going to read a poem called A Fly in Your Ear Concerning Ancient Inscriptions and Cold Truths. Every family in the province wished to earn enough to own both a raven and a serpent. Few succeeded in this endeavor. Some had either one or the other, which, according to Holy Scripture, might lead to all manner of imbalances within the family structure. And then there were those who traveled all the corners of the globe sealing deals in commodities and sacred trade routes. There were those who had both, and some, in the highest echelon, even owned a copperwood tree that grew in a central holy yard, in their holy homes, where both the holy raven and the holy serpent dwelled. Those holy creatures, of course, were just symbols of fire, of the lust that drove us mechanically, chemically, psycho-emotionally. And thus, we forged the divide between the provincial and the psycho-emotional cosmopolitan. And then a day appeared, coming forth in a stringent morning laced with caffeine and carbohydrates. It turned into a stringent night. Good night, everybody. Thank you for a fantastic show. So please do join us next Saturday. We have 5 UK poets live, and they are some of the best of the contemporary poetry world in the UK. So please do join us for that. And lots of love and poetry. See you next time.
It starts at 4 o'clock next time.
Yeah, 4 o'clock Eastern instead of 5. So
1 hour earlier. 1 hour earlier. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.